Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. Very welcome to our first public Young Scientist webinar. The chat function is open to everyone, so feel free to join in on the conversation by adding in where you're joining us from. And if you have any questions, there is a Q&A box as well where you can add your questions. And at the end, we will have a Q&A session for you, for our panelists to answer your questions. We are very delighted to be back with you all after a summer break. Today's session actually coincides with Africa Youth Month, which is an opportunity for Target Malaria to celebrate the potential of young people, young scientists, and encourage them to achieve great things. My name is Lorraine, and I'm joined by my colleague Ndayman. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Ndayman, and I'm Lorraine's co-host today. We're very happy to resume our Young Scientist Network webinar and get the opportunity to, get around the table and also discuss topics that are of utmost interest for young scientists everywhere in the world, especially in Africa. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ndayman. So our guests today are two amazing young scientists from our team in Uganda who are working to end malaria. We have Rita with us, who is the Modeling Statistics and GIS Officer, and Hudson, the Field Entomology Lead at Target Malaria, Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us. So I will start with Rita. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your role?
Thank you, Lorraine. Hello, everyone. Happy Africa Youth Month. My name is Rita Mwima, and I'm a computational biologist. So what does that mean? Well, I see myself as a translator. I take the complex stories told by biological data, the secrets hidden in mosquito genes, the patterns of disease spread across landscapes, and I translate them into a language that captures, that computers can understand and help us solve problems. I'm here today, not as a distant expert, but as a peer, a fellow traveler on this scientific journey, and being part of the Target Malaria community with its drive for innovative and sustainable solutions as a source of great inspiration for me.
Great, thank you so much, Rita. And Hudson, please, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your role?
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Wherever you're joining from, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Hudson Onen, as you have already heard, and I lead the field team for Target Malaria Uganda. And as part of my role on this position is I guide the entire field work and make sure that every other single work that the field teams are doing in the field is, following the right protocols. So basically, that's what I contributed to this role. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so Hudson, staying with you, what did you study and how did it shape your work today? And on your journey here to today, were there any unexpected turns or detours in your journey as a young scientist?
Well, good question. My study has been a long way coming. I started by studying education, and at the time I studied specializing in biology and chemistry. After that, I worked a little bit as a teacher for secondary school, and later on went and studied BSc in zoology, majoring in zoology, minoring in botany. And around that time, as a BSc project, I conducted a research by looking at the abundance and distributions of the gut helminth in goats in different places. I continued again and did MSc in zoology, majoring in entomology. And at my MSc, I investigated the distribution and abundance of the aquatic macroinvertebrates that share breeding habitats with the immature stages of Anopheles gambiae. And the rationale for this was to answer questions such as why or what would ever happen to the non-target organisms that share breeding habitats with the Anopheles mosquitoes if a technology such as gene drive, which is meant to reduce the population of Anopheles gambiae from the breeding habitat, what would happen to their population along the way? So that was part of the motivation of the work. It didn't end there. I continued and I enrolled for a PhD in zoology as well, majoring in medical entomology. My research at this point focused on investigating the adaptive oviposition site selection behavior of the gravid Anopheles gambiae under the influence of the different biophysical factors of the breeding habitats. So for me to answer these questions, I use molecular approach utilizing microsatellite markers and colony software to establish the siblingship, which would help infer the parentage. So I did this work in Tanzania, in Ifakara, and the work was done under semi-field experiment.
That's amazing that you got to, already work outside of Uganda. It's not something that is, an achievement when you are a young scientist. So you have like this expertise of entomology in Uganda, but also in a very different context. Also, Tanzania is in East Africa. And what about you, Rita? Do you want to tell us more about, what your daily work looks like? Why is it important for projects such as Target Malaria?
Thank you. My first degree was in computer science, and like what Hudson has said, I love logic and problem solving. So on completing my first degree, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship for a sandwich master's program between Makerere University in Uganda and North Dakota State University in the US. And this was in international infectious disease management. I was part of a class of 6 Ugandans, and this included 3 vets, 1 wildlife scientist, and a lab technologist. And it was such a big turn for me at that point. So suddenly, I was doing courses like epidemiology, pathogenesis of infectious diseases, biosecurity, name it. And this, I feel, has shaped the work I do today. This MSc is the direct through line to my current PhD research, which involves using mathematical modeling and computer simulations to evaluate the effectiveness of novel malaria vector control tools.
Great, thank you so much. Rita, staying with you, as November is Africa Youth Month, how does that inspire you and the work that you're doing?
Africa Youth Month is deeply personal for me, I think. It's a time of reflection and immense inspiration. I look at the energy, the creativity, and the digital native brilliance of the young Africans today. And I don't just see a demographic, but the operating system of our continent's future. So this month inspires me because it forces us to look forward with hope and actions, because for too long, the narrative has been about Africa being dominated by challenges they face. But when I engage with the young scientists today, I see a generation that's not just defined by these problems, but instead energized to actually solve them. They leverage technology, right from mobile applications to AI in various ways we've actually never imagined, in order to address various issues in agriculture, health, and finance.
Mm-hmm.
So in my own field of public health, I feel this is very critical, the fight against malaria, which is not just about using the old tools, but also creating new ones. And who is better suited to build these solutions than the young Africans who understand the local situation and they feel the urgency more. They are fearless in applying these technologies.
Yeah.
And with Target Malaria, I feel we are not just conducting research in Africa, but we're actually building a legacy of African scientific leadership for Africa.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rita. What about you, Hudson? How does Africa Youth Month inspire you?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very nice question for this webinar. So for me personally, I get inspired by this African Youth Month because this is one of the rare platforms where the voices of the African youth working to address pressing challenges that faces the communities where we come from gets to be heard and amplified. For instance, a project such as Target Malaria, which is using using genetic modification as a tool to suppress mosquito population in the fight against malaria, which is endemic to us. This widened the best of trust from our local society, especially the advocacy, which comes from the continent, that people around us, our parents, the administrators, the policymakers, if such voices are coming from their very own, their children, their scientists, their daughters, it increases the trust on this technology. And this, for me, I take it personal. That's why I get super inspired, because we are being involved. We are, getting to take the message down to the grassroots. So we are getting to the spotlight of this. I get inspired fully. Thank you very much.
That's great. And Lorraine, we also wanted to take this short break to share the poll. We wanted to know more about the attendees of this webinar today. So I'm just going to launch the poll, which is just about the region you're connecting from, but feel free to let us know which city you are currently based in. Thank you.
Great. And whilst that poll is running, we will move on to our next question as well. So I will go back to Rita. How do you envision the future of science and innovation in Africa and the role of youth in shaping it?
Thank you, Lorraine. I envision a future where Africa is not just a subject of the global health research, but also a source of its solutions. A future where our innovations for malaria, for food security, for climate resilience are born from our very own and tailored to our context. And the youth are not just participants in this future, they're actually the core engine. I feel like their digital fluency, their innate creativity, and their refusal to be bound by the way things have always been done is our single greatest advantage as young people. So the youth need to move from isolated, siloed science to a model that is collaborative. They need to understand the grand challenge, that the grand challenge of malaria is not just a biological problem, not just a data problem, an engineering problem, a community engagement problem as well. So how do I think we can do this? First, I think we could create problem-focused networks and not just discipline-focused ones. And with this, I mean that instead of a network for only biologists and another for mathematicians, we need a network that brings innovators from different fields together for a shared mission. I also think that we need to institutionalize collaboration. And with this, I mean that we need to have platforms where young scientists from different countries can co-design projects and compete in innovation challenges with real world applications. I also think that we could have more sandwich programs and research attachments within Africa so that a student from Uganda can easily work in a lab in, for example, Senegal or Tunisia or Ghana. This, I feel, will build Pan-African scientific identity. And lastly, I think that we could move from just having a one mentor model to having a mentorship web where a youth can access a data scientist, a policy expert, and a community leader within the same network. So that when a young researcher in Malawi has a question, their first instinct should be to connect with a peer in Nigeria, in Tunisia, in Uganda, because the system is designed to make that connection seamless and supportive.
Yeah, I agree. That would be.
I completely agree also with. Sorry, I completely agree also with Rita. I think we really need, more spaces, more forums where, of course, scientists can exchange and share information, but also make sure that younger ones are involved, that they are trained, that they are, and that their confidence is built by their maybe more senior peers. And we have been really advocating for also scientists to be more visible, because sometimes, at least I've noticed that they are very shy sometimes about their work. They don't always want to, share it outside of a audience of specialists. But it's very important, to participate in some specialized networks such as ResearchGate, and to also participate in conferences, public speaking opportunities, and we really advocate for more visibility for scientists working from Africa, and also collaborating with scientists throughout the world. Back to you, Lorraine.
Yes, I 100% agree as well, and I think collaboration is at the core of the future of science and innovation in Africa. So it's good that we're having these conversations. And Hudson, what about you? How do you envision the future of science and innovation in Africa and the role of youth in shaping it?
I think for me, looking at how the paradigm shift is taking place by getting more youth involved into every single step of research that addresses challenges that faces the youth and then the community where they come from. I envision Africa where youth will drive the science and innovation and the continent owning this different technology developed to solve pressing society problems such as malaria, HIV, name it. So we're seeing ourselves with the involvement, we'll move this forward and then own it, and in the future, we'll pass it to the next generation. That's to me how I see and the roles of the youth in shaping this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hudson.
Thank you, Hudson. I'm just gonna launch the second survey that we have for the audience, and to give them also the opportunity to share their 2 cents and let us know what they think about the future of science in Africa.
Yes, thank you, Ndeman. Right. Okay, and whilst that poll is running, we will move on to the next question. So malaria takes away the lives or the potential of the most vulnerable ones in our community. How can we better protect the youth from this disease? Hudson, I'll start with you.
Well, this is a very important question indeed. I would say when we're looking at the protection of the youth, this also widely involve everybody, not just the youth, our parents, our children, our brothers who are still young. So from my perspective, I think the youth should adhere to the use of the current tools, such as sleeping under the mosquito treated mosquito nets, removing larval habitats around home, minimizing activities that create larval habitats near the homesteads that increases the vector human contact. And when working outside at a time that you're expecting mosquito bites outdoor, it's always important, if you can afford, to apply mosquito repellents. And that's very important so that you get, protected. I also think for those who are educated, who have gone to school and got some training around the entomology, vector control, they should get the community involved. They should lead the process. They should, educate, insist, and foster the adherence to this kind of activities and practices from wherever they come from. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hudson. And Rita, what about you? How do you think we can better protect the youth from malaria?
I'll just add on to what Hudson has said, that this is actually at the heart of why we do what we do. So, because when malaria takes a life, it doesn't just take a person, but it takes a future leader, a future teacher, a future engineer. So to protect our youth, we need to use a dual strategy that is dynamic as malaria is itself. The first strategy, I think, is using a shield of cutting edge science. And by this, I mean that organizations like Target Malaria and several others that are developing genetic technologies, that are developing new insecticides, that are developing vaccines, sophisticated models, should stay ahead of the parasite and the mosquito. And then I also think that we could use a second layer, which is the shield of empowering our communities, and these are the youth. We must actively involve them in this fight. This means we translate the complex science into relatable knowledge that they can use and share. And it means training them to be citizen scientists, to understand the mosquito breeding sites in their neighborhoods, maybe be trusted voices that explain these new interventions. So the most resilient protection system, therefore, is one where the top-down innovation will meet bottom-up ownership, will protect the potential of our youth by equipping them with the tools and the knowledge to safeguard their own futures.
Yeah, thank you, Rita.
I just have wanted to ask maybe a quick note, Lorraine, in line of what Rita just said. I think, the digital tools can be better used. We all know that TikTok is very popular on the content on the continent, but also, in other areas of the world. I'm just wondering, how could we use maybe TikTok or Instagram to, better raise awareness about, for example, seasonal malaria, when we know that it's about to be the rainy season. Just make sure that, people are aware that they should pay even more attention to cleaning up their surroundings, and also putting in place repellents such as mosquito nets and other tools that they have available. So that's it's an open question. And I think in most countries, it's the youth that really masters these kind of tools, and it's up to them to innovate, to make sure that, malaria prevention campaigns are just not only running on TV, but that they can be also found on social media and in also other spaces where the youth is active.
And I'll just ask Damon if you could launch the last poll as we move on to the last question, which is, Hudson, I'll start with you. If you could go back, what would you tell your younger self or someone else entering this field?
If I could put Hudson down, probably around 6 years or 8 years younger boy than this, I'll just tell him that, Hudson, life is a journey, and every successful hunter does not come home without a scar. As you pursue the life journey, challenges and opportunities will show up in full gear. And this is something that you should know. And when you meet, or if a lemon is thrown on you, out there, make lemonade out of it by paying attention to every single step required to make a good lemonade. Do not make sure you alter the taste. Make sure that every ingredient is put in. That, in summary, means paying attention to every single detail. So stay focused, be willing to adjust, and wherever the direction of the wind during a career sailing, gauge the negative force very well and carefully adjust the cruising direction that will lead you to a final destination, no matter what time you may arrive at the final destination. In summary, along the life journey, so many challenges will show up. whatever you had planned at the initial stages of a child, things will change. Adjust yourself very well. Take every negative forces with positivity. And wherever you find yourself at a present position or a present situation, pay attention to every single detail. There is always an opportunity that will put you forward from that point. Never move out with negative forces in anything that presents itself to you. I would advise myself like that. And I also think this gets down to whoever is listening to me from wherever they are. I think I've just used myself, but this cuts across to everybody who is attending this. Thank you very much. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Hudson. And Rita, what about you? Do you have any advice to your younger self or someone else who's thinking about entering this field of science?
I'll start with an experience I went through. When I got the scholarship, I was part of a group of students who were taken to meet senators in Washington, D.C. And during that visit, I was asked to advise the senator on how I think infectious diseases can be controlled in Africa. I just don't know why, for some reason, I went mute during that time. And looking back at what happened, I feel like I have learned so many lessons that I'm going to summarize into maybe 2 or 3 takeaways. So if I could sit down with my younger self, the computer scientist who felt like an imposter in a room full of vets, lab technologists, wildlife scientists, I would give her this advice. Number 1, I would tell her to lean into her discomfort. I would tell her that the feeling of being out of your comfort zone is not a sign that you're in the wrong place. It's just a sign that you're in the right place for growth. So take more risks and explore broadly. Your unique perspective is needed wherever you go. The second thing I would tell my younger self is to intentionally build my web. Intentionally build your web, Rita. Science is not just a solo sport. The network you build, your peers, your mentors, your collaborators will be your support system and your source of excellence. So I would tell her not to just collect contacts, but build genuine connections. They will open doors you never knew existed and sustain you through the tough times. Number 3, I would tell Rita to cultivate a resilient mindset. I would tell her that she will face setbacks, experiments will fail, code will have bugs, grants will be rejected, but her success won't be defined by avoiding those moments, but instead by how she learns and bounces back. Remember, your passion fuels. Your passion is your fuel, but your resilience is your armor. And finally, I would tell her to be bilingual in skills. I would tell her not to just be a brilliant technical mind, but learn to communicate her ideas with passion and clarity. I would tell her to develop soft skills, to lead a team, to listen to a community, to tell a story of her science. It's a combination of the deep technical skills and the ability to connect with people that actually makes you truly transformative.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Thank you, Rita. I like that. Being uncomfortable can be a sign of growth. And I like how you used that and now you're here. It all worked out. So at this point, we are going to be asking for the audience to send in your questions. The Q&A is open, or you can leave them in the chat if that's easier. But yeah, any questions are welcomed, and Rita and Hudson will be answering.
Yes, so my first question is for Rita. Rita, what do you think about the field of data science? Do you see, what applications do you see, for example, in your country? Is it something that is very new, or is it an established discipline in Uganda? Can you just tell us more about that? Because it's true that it's not an area that I'm much familiar with. Thank you.
So it's a field that's actually growing. There's huge data out there. And the way I came into this field was through the MSc I talked about earlier. So after that MSc, and then I was exposed to using big data, exposed to doing more modeling and simulations, and as well as spatial data science. So I feel like it's a field that's actually growing, especially with the growth in AI here in Africa. And with the many challenges we have, putting that together, the big data science in public health and the application of AI in predictive modeling, I feel like we shall bring so many fields together and build more predictive models.
Okay, I'm checking the Q&A and the chat, but we don't have any questions. So yeah, if there's any questions from the audience, feel free to just type them in. But while we wait, I'll just ask both Rita and Hudson. It was mentioned about having, finding mentoring in your field to support your career journey. How would you suggest someone goes about finding a mentor? I'll start with you, Hudson. Should they reach out to someone on LinkedIn, potentially you, or should they email people? How can you find a mentor?
That's a very nice question from my end. I have just come back from ASTMH in Canada, and part of finding a mentor is one of the other challenges that I think every young scientist gets through, but also gets back to a typical mentee in the process of a search. Quite often with the modern technology now, I think it's quite easy for you to look for individuals in your area of research. When you get one, it's sometimes you just write to them an email. Some of them will respond, some will take forever. Sometimes those that don't respond, it's part of the game, it's part of the challenge. Attending conferences is also a good one, presenting your work. Some people take the advantage of, trying to listen to you and gauge you in discussion about your work. And sometimes that's how you find a mentor. So, I've also seen that by joining LinkedIn, there's always a lot of opportunities that are posted in there. If you see something that really works within your field, or somebody's, advertising some stuff, it's good, reach out to them. And that could be the beginning and you find yourself a mentor. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Rita, what about you? How would you advise someone to go about finding a mentor?
Mentorship is a two-way experience. Earlier on in my career, I reached out to people I thought would help mentor me. And every time I reached out to them, they say they were busy. But, someone says, well, thank you for reaching out. I can help when you have questions, but otherwise I'm busy. And so I kind of just gave up on finding a mentor and swam in the deep waters. But during my PhD journey, I was actually privileged to experience the impact of a mentor. I actually didn't reach out to him. He reached out to me and said, I see potential in you. I see you could do this better and do that better. And this person was very intentional throughout the journey. He would send an email and say, we need to catch up and tell me how much work you've done, what you're doing next. And so I feel like I'm very privileged to have such a person in my life during this journey. So because of that, I have because of that, I'm very intentional about helping out others, about reaching out to other students, because I know when you've been turned down so many times, you kind of give up and just keep going. So I intentionally reach out to PhD students who are starting on their journey and advise them and allow them to share their experiences. We have one-on-ones when they show where they need help. I can come in and assist in that way. So for me, it's been just a learning journey and the experience of being fortunate enough to get someone to walk this journey with me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's very nice that you've become a mentor now, so you're giving back in that way. We have a question, so I will read it out and then we can see who wants to answer it. If you could change one misconception about your work, what would it be?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is the idea that our work is about eradicating all mosquitoes or recklessly interfering with the ecosystem.
Right.
And to understand why that's not the case, it's helpful to look into the numbers. I feel like so every time that question is asked, I explain that we have over 3,500 species of mosquitoes globally. And in Africa, where the malaria burden is highest, we only have about 4 species, which are within the Anopheles gambiae complex, and they are responsible for the vast majority of malaria transmission. So I feel that's one of the biggest misconceptions. The other is that given that Target Malaria's research is focused exclusively on specific vectors, we are investigating a gene drive approach for population suppression. And I already say that we aim to reduce the number of these particular malaria-transmitting mosquitoes to a level where they can no longer sustain the cycle of malaria.
Yes, thank you, Rita. Okay. Oh, I think we have one more question. Maybe I'll give this one to Hudson. What trends or emerging areas in science excite you the most right now?
The trend that excites me quite much is bioinformatics, where you get to understand the organisms to the lowest level of the complexity. Being someone who is more focused into the behavioral studies, the behavioral ecology of the mosquitoes, which is a field that people do not dive much into. For me, every single mosquito out there is not just behaving the way they behave by chance. There's a genetical influence to this as they respond to the different environmental factors within an area or wherever they live. You'd ask yourself, why are we having shifts in the mosquito species from a particular place over time? Why are we now having Anopheles defensi moving from Djibouti or from wherever to, and moving to places that they have never been before? Why are we having funestas now moving from wherever they used not to be to wherever they are, invading? So the question is that there's a genetical play around here that modifies the behavior as these mosquitoes, respond to the suitability of the ecology that everyone is probably creating with human activities. So bioinformatics helps me, or the emerging trends that really, makes me understand if there's a particular, alteration in the gene, there's some level of mutation that is happening, making probably mosquito most adapted to particular environmental conditions or some ecology. So for me, that's slightly excites me. AI is trying to catch up a little bit for me, but it's I still feel like AI still requires a natural intelligence because AI just does probably work quickly, but it still requires raw material which comes from the natural intelligence. So I would still say artificial intelligence should not kill the natural intelligence. So that I would put that as number 2, but bioinformatics for me leads the way. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you, Hudson. Okay, well, I don't think we have any other questions in the Q&A or the chat. So I think this brings us to an end. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. And a big thank you to Rita and Hudson for sharing your stories and your work.
Yeah, I would just like to ask them if they had just one last advice before we wrap up everything. It was such an interesting and such an interactive session. And it's true that, both of your fields are completely unknown to me. And I think I'm not the only one. I see that a lot of participants selected other areas of interest. So I think it was a very interesting conversation for everyone. So if you had just one conclusion to this, especially in regard of Africa Youth Month, what would it be?
From my end, I would say for all the youth, networking is key. Sharing challenges makes you learn that you're not in the equation alone. Sharing opportunities that are out there with colleagues makes everybody wins as a group. Winning alone doesn't change the society where we want to see our children, the generation that we want to leave behind. If anything, competition only happens at a lower level. At a higher level, there is collaboration and people doing big when they collaborate together. So I would say, let's look out for opportunities. Let's share the opportunities that are there. Don't die with your challenges alone. Everybody has some challenges, but maybe for others, they were there before you, and they can offer you a very good advice on how to, handle that. So for me, that is my last advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What about you, Rita? What would you like to say to the young scientists who are today here with us?
I think what I can say is that be intentional every day, every single day you wake up, be intentional about how you live your life, because you just don't know which opportunity you're giving away. Be intentional about the people you speak to. And if you notice that this person is very good at sharing information, sharing experiences, advice, stick with them. And I say that because there's someone on my journey, during my journey, there's this person who was just good at sharing information randomly, who'd maybe come and say, oh, there's this book, have you read it? Oh, there's this question, have you read it? Get a response to it. And because of this peer-to-peer interaction, I feel like I have actually grown in such a short time. So be intentional with the people you meet, with the work you do, the peers, in your office. You just never know when the right opportunity will strike.
Yeah. Thank you, Rita. Before we close out as well, people are able to find you on LinkedIn, right? They can connect with you and reach out if they have any questions.
Well, for me, my LinkedIn name is still Hudson Onen, as you see on the screen. Yeah, you'll find me there, so we can discuss further after this. Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. And yeah, so this has been recorded. The recording will be on our YouTube channel, and we'll be promoting it. And you'll be able to then find Hudson and Rita on LinkedIn very easily. But if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at info@targetmalaria.org or reach out to us on our social medias. So yeah, thank you very much everyone for joining. I hope you found it as insightful as we did. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
everybody. Thank you. Thank you for hosting us, and thank you everybody who joined in. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.